Hello, everybody, and welcome to Top 5 New Comics for November 13th of 2024. I am, as always, Chris. I'm really excited about this week's books. It's not only mostly number ones, so fresh new comics to get into, but only one big two book out of the entire list. And even when I pared it down from like 7 or 8, it was only one big two book. So that's really exciting because I love comics of all sorts. And to see a bunch of independent or smaller publishers getting some great books out there is exciting. So let's jump right in. Starting with Absolute Batman #2. This is written by Scott Snyder with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Long and the short of it is, out of the 3 Absolute titles that we've gotten, I believe that Absolute Batman was the best. I think the way Scott and Dragotta here introduced the world, the characters, the origin story were done the best. I get a lot of slack for not being a fan of origin stories. That's not entirely true. My gripe is always that the 2 origin stories we don't need, and it goes a little bit further than that. I would add Superman to this list, but the big 2 that we just don't need to ever see again are Spider-Man and Batman. That, of course, goes away when you're talking about a alternate universe Batman that has different motives and a different upbringing. If you're changing the origin of these characters, then you need to express how you're changing the origin. And I guess spoilers for Absolute Batman #1, if you didn't read that, I don't know, skip forward, skip the video, because it's important to talk about when talking about the future of the series. We get in this that while Thomas Wayne was murdered in a very different way, he was a school teacher, he was murdered during a school field trip in front of Bruce, Martha still is alive. So we have a Batman, not only does he not have the support structure and the financial structure of the Batman we know and love from DC Comics, but his mother is still around to shape and mold him as a person, as a man. That's huge. And the way Scott wrote the story in bits and pieces as opposed to telling it all at once just appeals to me much more. I like when creators throw me into a world and then slowly delve out little pieces of what things are about. As long as, obviously, you have to be a good writer because you have to be able to pull it off, because I have to be sucked in while you're doing that. But I enjoyed that more than how, let's say, Wonder Woman was my least favorite of the 3, although I still really enjoyed it, where we literally spent half the book just going over the origin story and didn't spend enough time with her in the present as the character, as the woman she is now. And then in Superman, we started off with his origin story and saw that there were some differences and then got right into the story. So 3 different ways to tell an origin, 3 different ways to delve out an origin, but I think Absolute Batman did the best. Absolute Superman was my second favorite, and then Wonder Woman was my least. And for this now, we're moving forward with it. We've seen what Alfred is doing, who he is. He stays as an agent at MI6. He's this special agent who's sent out to do different things. We know that the big bad, at least for this first story arc, is Black Mask. We get to meet who Joker is in this world and how he differs, and I really loved how they changed Joker in so many ways. Another conversation I have a lot is about there being too much Joker in Batman comics and in DC Comics as a whole. But with this change, I thought it was a good idea to bring him out right away and show, because I think he can be something in the background that eventually becomes a main threat. For now, we've got Batman fighting the Black Mask Gang and then dealing with Alfred Pennyworth pseudo hunting him down, I guess, is what's going on. So there's a lot going on, a lot of cool story beats happening. I think they set up so much in this first issue that to move forward with it, there's a lot to dive into and slowly get into. I think it's going to be a really great series. I'm really looking forward to issue 2. And this, if it wasn't for the other 4 new #1s that we're getting this week that I have on this list, this would hands down be the first of the big 2 books I'll be reading Wednesday. But let's jump out of the big 2 we go to our next comic, which is Arcbound #1. This is written by Scott Snyder, Frank Tieri, and Tom Hardy, with art by Ryan Smallman and colors by Frank William. So there's a bunch of reasons why this book is so intriguing to me. I mean, first of all, you've got Scott Snyder and Frank Tieri, who are two comic writers who I absolutely love. We just talked about Scott Snyder a little bit in the last book we talked about, but I've also really enjoyed some of his stuff outside of DC that he's done since leaving, and then he's now come back. Frank Tieri's a guy who jumps around a lot and does a lot of cool things, and I tend to really enjoy his work. His run at Marvel, doing some books there, was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed some of the independent work that he's done. He's a great writer. And then we got to talk about the elephant in the room. Tom Hardy is a part of this as well. Now, we all know and love Tom Hardy as an actor. We all think about Mad Max. Obviously, he's doing the Venom movies right now. He's done so many great things. And for him to jump into the space is something to discuss. We've seen it with Keanu Reeves and a few others, but it's becoming more and more popular for big-time Hollywood creators, actors, personalities to jump into our space and play with our toys. And I like to see it because sometimes the grand ideas that these guys have just don't work as movies, or need to be proven in a way, comics, to then eventually become movies. A simple fact, movies cost a lot of money to make. So when you have a medium like comics that can tell stories with a limitless budget and come in and do what you want to do and show that the story can work, that's huge. And I love to see it. And then for Dark Horse to be taken on this book is really special. So what do we have here? We have a far future story of Earth as a barren wasteland. And then we meet our main character, who you see on the cover here, and kind of what he's dealing with as he gets an unexplained message from a mysterious entity, and everything he believes is thrown into question. So there's a lot of things going on here where there's something going on with the world. There's some belief as to what happened to it. And it's quite possible that the lies that were told to people are not true. This is something we can all relate to. I mean, if you believe that you're being told the truth 24/7 by the powers that be, you're probably a little naive. So to think that in the near future, after Earth is turned to a wasteland, that wouldn't also happen, that people will be hiding what happened from the regular people, is very believable. And to tell a story in this world, I love science fiction stories. I love post-apocalyptic stories. Two of my favorite genres or themes that you can jump into. So we've got a great creative team here. We've got a great publisher here. And I think we got a cool story idea here. So I'm really excited to see where they go with this. The story behind this is that it will be some sort of shared universe. We might get a couple books inside of the Arcbound universe. We'll see what goes on there. For now, #1 just got to prove to me it's got staying power. And with a creative team like this and a publisher like this, I think has a good chance. After that, speaking of great publishers and great universes, I've got Black Hammer Spiral City #1. This is written by Jeff Lemire with art by Teddy Christensen. So I'm excited for this. I love Black Hammer. Black Hammer has been a really cool indie superhero universe like no other. It's very unique while taking a lot from especially classic DC comics. So it's done a lot of cool things throughout its run. I'm a man of two minds in this one. First, we just had Black Hammer, The End. Now, it says right in the title, The End. I was expecting that it was going to finalize the Black Hammer universe and that Jeff Lemire and company would move on from it. That said, while it did end kind of that first big story, it did leave room for something more. And whether Jeff saw that or knew he was doing that and that was the plan all along and wanted to move forward with it, or let's just be honest, maybe he saw numbers and said, let's keep going with Black Hammer because I'm making a lot of money off this and I love making it. Who knows? But we've got the Black Hammer universe back. And we're dealing with what happened after the end. Brand new cast of characters, a new era for the world. It's going to be interesting. And it comes back to what we're talking about with Arcbound. We've got kind of a post-apocalyptic Black Hammer story because if you remember from the end, the world's done. It's been destroyed. So where does that leave everything? I'll be very, very interested in this one come Wednesday because it has, for the first time in a long time, a lot to prove for the Black Hammer universe, which is why it'll probably be the first book off my stack when I get here Wednesday after I leave the comic shop, because I've read every Black Hammer book. I love the Black Hammer universe, and I thought that we left it on a very good note, but at the same time, I'll always take more, and I'm excited to see what Jeff Lemire and company have in store for it. After that, I've got Granite State Punk The Coven, #1. This is written by Travis Gibb, with art by Patrick Burmeyer, letters by Jerome Gunan, and edited by Heather Gibb. I guess, disclaimer here, I'm a big Granite State Punk fan. I back the Kickstarters for these books. I'm friends with the writer. I've got art from the book and a CGC copy behind me. So take with that what you will. But I personally just love the Granite State Punk series. What Travis and Patrick have done here is something special. It's a very personal story. Travis, you can tell a lot of his life is put into this book. While exaggerated, like any great writer, moments of his life are throughout this book, and just his upbringing, who he was as a young man, all these things are brought in through Zeke, while, once again, very exaggerated, because I don't think Travis at any point had the power of black magic. Maybe there's something he's not telling me. But The Coven is just, I think it's the 3rd issue of the series that's coming out, and it is now from Scout Comics, coming to your local comic shop. The art is amazing. Patrick is one of the best artists in the independent comic scene. Travis is an up-and-coming writer who you got to pay attention to. The man's working his ass off and is writing some really great books. This is, in my opinion, by far his best. And I'm just so happy that it has a publisher to get out to the masses. Whatever your opinion, what Scout Comics is doing, I've had a change of heart on them as a publisher over the past few years, but that's not what's important, because what's great about the Granite State Punk books is that they are one-shot stories. So I'll just say my biggest complaint about Scout is that I can't trust their series, because I don't know whether I'll get an issue 2 and 3 and 4 because of some of their publishing practices, which prevent me from trying a lot of their books, because if I can't trust that you'll at least give me the first story arc of a book, it's tough for me to dive in. But with Granite State Punk, what I can say to everyone out there is that these are one-shot stories, so you get the one book, and while it is continuing the story in some ways, they are all independent of themselves, jumping on points, and meant to be read as one. So it really is a great book for a great type of book for a creator bringing the Scout, because you don't have to worry about an issue 2, because there will not be an issue 2 of Granite State Punk Coven. The next issue of Granite State Punk is titled something else entirely, and will be a new #1. So I absolutely love Granite State Punk. I hope everybody out there gives it a shot, and just think it's a really special book. And yeah. So then we're going to go ahead and end with G.I. Joe #1. This is written by Joshua Williamson, art by Tom Riley, colors by Jody Belair, and letters by Russ Wooten. Maybe you followed me through this journey, maybe you haven't, but Image Skybound announced a while back that they got the G.I. Joe Transformers license. I didn't even see this happen. I think it was done pretty under the rug. A lot of people were surprised by it. I just saw this new book coming out from Robert Kirkman, one of my favorite writers, called Void Rivals, and I picked it up because Robert Kirkman's the writer, so I'm going to try it out. Turns out it was a launching point for the new universe of G.I. Joe and Transformers, which was hilarious at the time for me, because I love the stealth launch, and I love the way that Robert is bringing fun and excitement to the comics universe. And with that, it announced that there was new books coming out. There was a new Transformers book. There was a book called Duke coming out from the G.I. Joe universe, and we got a Cobra Commander book. And then eventually that moved on to be a Scarlet book and a Destro book. And all those books have now concluded and come together to introduce the story and bring about the team G.I. Joe. Now, I absolutely love that Duke book. I think that Duke book's one of the best books of the year. And that had the creative team of none other than Joshua Williamson and Tom Riley. So when I saw that they were announced to be the new head, the guys in charge of G.I. Joe moving forward, I was excited. I just love what they did with Duke. And I've really enjoyed all these G.I. Joe books coming on, and to see how they've come together and reshaped the G.I. Joe universe. I don't believe, from how I'm reading what Joshua Williamson's been saying out there in the world, I think it's going to be a good jumping on point for anybody. You don't have to have read Duke and all those. If you do enjoy this, hey, that's more books you can go out and check out. So it's going to be a great jumping on point. I'm excited to see how they bring together this in Transformers. Even though I'm not much of a Transformers guy, let's bring it together and see what this is all about. I'm very interested to see how they tie in Void Rivals to all this. There's just so much here, building a new universe and expanding upon what's been done over the past 8-9 months of G.I. Joe and Transformers comics. And it kind of all culminates here with a new G.I. Joe book. I am a new reader of G.I. Joe. I don't have the super knowledge that a lot of G.I. Joe fans have, and I'll admit that. But I've just loved what they've done with the IP at Skybound. And I'm excited to see it all come together in this new series from creators I just love. Yeah, I think it's going to be a great time. And we'll see Wednesday. But everybody, that is everything for this week. Thank you all so much for watching this video. And if you want to support me further, remember, you can go find my Substack, chriscomicscorner.substack.com. You can find me on YouTube, on the channel you're watching right now, and find all the other videos I do, clips and sections of the Fortress Comic News podcast, as well as the interviews we do for that, and also the Fortress Comic News podcast, as I just mentioned, on podcast services everywhere. You can check that out. We do it weekly. And if you want to support this video further, best ways to do it are subscribe to the channel so you keep getting them, like the video down below, and comment. I always say comment the book that you're most looking forward to this week. If it's one on my list, let me know. If it's one that I missed, or maybe was one of those 7 or 8 that I was talking about that fell off, I can let you know why down below. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see y'all here next week.